You are the result of an argument that was never settled. Not a war. Not a famine. An argument about who gets to be with whom. It started before language. It started before fire. And it is still running, quietly, inside your body right now. Written into your bones and your blood and the shape of your own jaw. Somewhere in your family tree is a person who chose one partner and stayed for life. Somewhere else in that same tree is a person who did not. Both of them are you. So which one was normal? Here is the strange part. Your body has already answered. You just have never been taught to read it. Start with size. Look at a gorilla troop. One enormous male, 400 pounds of him, and a group of females who are barely half his weight. He is twice their size because he has to fight other males to keep them. In the animal world, that gap has a meaning. The bigger the male is compared to the female, the more females he is trying to hold on to, and the harder he has to fight to do it. Now measure yourself against that. The average human man is about 15% heavier than the average human woman. 15%, not double, not triple. A man is a little bigger, a little broader in the shoulder, and that is nearly the whole of it. 15% is not the body of a species built for harems, but it is not the body of a species built for perfect lifelong pairs either. Birds that mate for life often show almost no difference at all between male and female. Humans sit in the awkward middle, and it used to be worse. Go back 3 million years to the small upright ancestors walking the grasslands of East Africa, and the gap between male and female was much wider. Those males were noticeably larger, which means the competition between them was fiercer, and the groups they lived in probably looked more like the gorillas than yours. Then, slowly, across 1 million years, the males got smaller relative to the females. The gap closed. Something in how our ancestors lived was rewarding cooperation over combat, but it never closed all the way. Now look somewhere less polite. Sperm. There is a rule in biology that sounds like a joke and is not. When females of a species mate with several males in a short window, the males evolve enormous testicles because the contest is no longer just fists. It moves inside the body. Whoever produces the most wins the most. Chimpanzees are the extreme case. A female chimp in season may mate dozens of times in a day with most of the males in her group. Chimp testicles are, for their body size, gigantic. They are factories. Gorillas are the opposite. One male has exclusive access, so there is nothing to outproduce. His testicles are tiny for an animal that size, and a human. Right in the middle. Again, bigger than a gorilla's, far smaller than a chimp's, which is the body quietly admitting that across our history. Women were not always with only one man, but they were not with every man either. Your anatomy is a compromise. It always was. Then there is the thing your species does that almost nothing else does. You hide it. A female chimp advertises her fertility with a swelling so obvious it can be seen across a clearing. A dog announces it with scent. Most mammals broadcast the exact window when conception is possible, because that is the point. A human woman does not. Ovulation is silent. Her partner does not know. Very often she does not know either. Think about what that quietly makes impossible. If no male can tell when a woman is fertile, no male can guard her for just a few days and then walk away. To have any confidence a child is his, he has to stay, not for a week, for years. Concealed fertility does not force monogamy, but it makes casual dominance almost useless, and it makes sticking around suddenly worth the cost. At the same time, it does something else. It makes secrecy possible. A woman whose fertility is invisible can carry a child whose father is uncertain, and no one can prove otherwise. Hidden ovulation gives with one hand and takes with the other. It rewards the man who stays, and it protects the woman who does not only stay. Both strategies got built into you at once. Do you see the pattern yet? Now for the piece of evidence that is hardest to argue with, because it is not a bone or a behavior, it is a count. Every person carries chromosomes from both parents, but 2 pieces of your genome travel differently. The Y chromosome passes only from father to son, an unbroken male line. Mitochondrial DNA passes only from mother to child, an unbroken female line. So if you count the diversity in each, you are counting how many men and how many women actually became ancestors. The numbers do not match. Across the deep human past, far more women passed on their genes than men. Consistently, in some periods, dramatically. Roughly speaking, for long stretches of prehistory, about twice as many women as men left descendants. Read that slowly, because it only has one meaning. In every generation, a large share of men had no children at all, while nearly every woman did. The men who did reproduce were often reproducing with more than one woman. And then there is the collapse. Around 8,000 years ago, something happened to the male line that has no equal anywhere else in our history. Y chromosome diversity crashed, not gradually. It fell off a cliff, across Africa, Europe, and Asia, at roughly the same time. At the bottom of that crash, the genetic evidence suggests something close to one man reproducing for every 17 women. 17 to 1. There was no plague that kills only men. There was no war on that scale. What there was farming. Agriculture had arrived, and with it something humans had never really owned before. Land, grain stores, herds, things that could be counted, inherited, defended, and taken. For the first time, a family could accumulate, and a lineage could become powerful. And a powerful lineage could push other lineages out entirely. Whole male lines simply ended, not because those men died young, but because their sons never got the chance to become fathers. That is the moment the argument turned brutal. Not in the caves, on the farm. So were ancient humans monogamous? The honest answer is that they were both in different ratios, in different places, for different reasons. And the evidence for both is sitting inside you. Look at the societies anthropologists have actually documented. Hundreds of them across every continent. Around 85% of them formally permitted a man to have more than one wife. That number sounds like an answer, and it is not, because inside those same societies, the great majority of marriages were still one man and one woman. Permission is not practice. Most men could never afford a second household. Polygyny was legal almost everywhere, and common almost nowhere. Then look closer at how people actually lived. And it gets stranger still. Among some peoples of the Amazon, there is a belief that a child is built up over months from the contributions of every man a woman is with during pregnancy. So a child can have 2 fathers, sometimes 3. This is not a scandal there. It is declared openly, and each of those men takes on real obligations, bringing food and protection to that child for years. And here's the part that stops people. In those communities, children with a second recognized father survive to adulthood at noticeably higher rates than children with only one. In a world where a hunter can be gone for a week, or injured, or dead, a spare father is not a betrayal. It is insurance. That is what multiple partners often meant in the deep past. Not appetite, logistics, because a human child is the most expensive thing our species has ever produced. A foal walks within an hour. A baby chimp clings to its mother's fur from the first day. A human infant cannot hold on, cannot walk, cannot feed itself, and stays helpless for years. Raising one to adulthood takes more calories than a single mother can gather alone, and often more than a single pair can manage either. So our ancestors did not raise children in couples. They raised them in crowds. Older siblings carried babies, aunts fed them, and grandmothers, uniquely in the animal world, lived for decades past their own fertility, for what appears to be exactly this reason. Because a woman who stops having her own children and instead feeds her daughter's children ends up with more descendants than one who does not. You come from a species where it took a group to make a person, and when it takes a group, the tidy question of who a child belongs to loses some of its power. So what about love? Was that invented later? Some romantic afterthought? No, that is the other half. Every human society ever studied has romantic love in it. Everyone. The songs, the sleeplessness, the obsessive focus on a single face. That is not a European invention or a modern one. It is a universal, and it burns with the same chemistry as an addiction, flooding the same reward circuits, driven by the same craving and withdrawal. Your ancestors fell in love, hard. The evidence is that they did it constantly. But notice how long it lasts. That desperate early phase, the one that makes people move countries and abandon plans, generally burns out somewhere between 18 months and 4 years around the world. In countries with wildly different laws and customs, divorces cluster at a strikingly similar point, about 4 years in. 4 years is roughly how long it takes to get a child through the most helpless stretch, from birth to the point where it can walk, eat solid food, and be carried by other members of the group, which suggests something uncomfortable. Human pair bonds may not be built to last a lifetime. They may be built to last one child, not a marriage, a tour of duty, and when it ends, people do not stop loving. They fall in love again, with someone else, just as hard. Our ancestors were not celibate after a bond broke, and they were not permanently paired either. They were serial, one deep bond. Then another, across a lifetime that rarely ran past 40. Then look at what you feel when a bond is threatened. Jealousy is not a personality flaw. It is a universal, present in every culture, appearing in children before they can explain it. With a physical response so strong, it changes heart rate and blood pressure. Evolution does not build alarm systems for dangers that do not exist. The existence of jealousy in you is proof that infidelity existed in them. You cannot evolve a smoke detector in a world without fire. So here is the full picture, and it fits no slogan. You come from a creature that pair bonds intensely and repeatedly. That hides its fertility, so it can neither be guarded nor be certain. That falls in love with a violence bordering on illness, and falls out of it on a schedule that matches the weaning of a child. That raises its young cooperatively, with fathers who stay and others who help. That has, in nearly every generation, produced men with no children and men with many. And that has felt jealousy in every language ever spoken, because there was always something to be jealous of. Ancient humans were not monogamous. Ancient humans were not promiscuous. They were flexible. And that flexibility is the actual trait, depending on how much food there was, how dangerous the neighbors were, how many men had died young, how much a family owned. Human mating shifted, and it shifted fast, within a few generations, without needing to change a single gene. That is the human specialty. Not one strategy, all of them, on standby. And it explains why this is still the most argued about part of being alive, why every culture writes rules about it, why every religion legislates it, why the laws keep changing and the arguments never end. We build these rules precisely because there is no single instinct to fall back on. Something that comes naturally does not need a law. So the next time someone tells you what humans are naturally meant to do, remember what you are actually carrying. A body sized for competition it mostly abandoned, anatomy that admits to a history of uncertainty, a silence where other animals broadcast, a genome recording, generations of men who never became fathers, a brain that can love one person for a decade and love someone else after. You are not the descendant of the winner of that argument. You are the descendant of everyone who kept it going. Because the argument was never settled, it was inherited, and it is running inside you right now, in your bones, in your blood, in the shape of your own hands, waiting for you to decide what to do with it.